Today we have Debjani Roy with us. Let me brief you all about her a little. She is a human resource and L&D professional with 25 years of corporate experience. Debjani Roy is known in the industry as a truly transformational HR stalwart with a career profile to match. A postgraduate in management studies from FMS Delhi University and with innumerable HR and L&D certifications under her belt. Debjani charted her career across organizations such as NALCO, Bharti, HCL Tech, Bentley Systems, Kuoni, SRL Diagnostics, amongst others. She was last the Chief HR Officer, CHRO, of SRL Diagnostics for 4.5 years before she called it quits from a full-time HR career in the year 2019. Awarded many times during her career for her reputation as an exemplary professional in the HR field, Debjani today believes in giving back as much as possible as a coach. Counselor, mentor for or to those in need, besides being involved with startups and boards of academic institutions in advisory capacity. She also dabbles with HR projects off and on, delivering quality HR solutions to cross-industry clients. She is a speaker of great repute, not only on HR matters and business in general, but also on life skills and social issues. The cause of the girl child and the woman is very dear to her heart. Debjani is also a prolific writer on management, and her insights are eagerly awaited for by many. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Pramita. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this platform. GroSum, I believe, is doing some fundamental work in providing solutions to the industry in the area of performance management. It's a great service, because this is one area where, despite all the work that has gone into, it still requires improvements and simplicity to be brought into the picture. So kudos to GroSum for that, having identified that as an area to work on, and for giving us the platform like this to be able to add to whichever way that we can to GroSum's journey by basically sharing some part of our experience with you. Thank you so much.
Sure. So shall we start with the questions?
Yes, please. I'm all yours.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about the current scenario, with the COVID-19 outbreak and the work scenario, how the COVID-19 and the pandemic affected the work from home scenario. So what is your opinion on the impact the pandemic situation had on employee performance?
Well, it has far-reaching consequences. To start with, let's understand it's a paradigm shift when we talk about work from home. Till yesterday, work from home, at least in the Indian subcontinent, was more an exception rather than the rule. So you either had the new age organizations like IT and ITES, which did practice some certain amount of work from home based on either individual workforce requirement or requests coming their way, primarily because of some exigency at home or any other. So it was a one-off which was really treated in the manner that it was, without really disturbing any of the ongoing processes that were part and parcel of the HR structure in the organizations. However, now work from home seems to be right there, okay, knocking at your door, if not already inside, okay, well entrenched as an alternative to deal with from now onwards, okay. We still don't know, we're still hypothecating that in the coming future, is it going to continue like this, or are we going to strike a balance between the two, or are we going to really, have the same scenario coming back where majority people will head back to their offices? While we debate on that question, I think what's important currently to look at is what is it doing to affect, okay, things like performance, productivity, measurements, everything that is surrounding performance for those people who stayed back during the time of this pandemic and have struggled with the organizations, but have actually been loyal enough not to go anywhere else. Okay, now if that is the kind of resilience, that is the kind of tenacity, if that is the kind of forbiddenness and yet turning it around to your advantage, if that is what is going to be the cardinal rule, then performance management will have to be looked at in a very different way from now on. Earlier, it was all a functionality of the physical space. So the boss and the subordinate, or the appraiser and the appraisee, as we call it, used to sit in front of each other right at the start of the year, would put down KRAs and KPIs, would put down the measurements, would put down the deadlines, and sign the paper off, which meant that that was a gentleman's contract, okay, for the appraisee to deliver as per certain expectations from the organization, and for the appraiser to see how best he or she has delivered by the end of the year, by the end of the performing year, so as to ascribe a certain compensation to him. That used to be net, the functionality, and it used to happen seamlessly because people were face to face. So setting of goals, setting of KRAs, to course correction by way of giving feedback in midterm situations, to also making sure that the delivery, when the delivery is happening at the end of the annual year, the performance measurement feedback, including all these self-assessments, peer reviews, and everything that's happening is on, on ground, visible, and is also being controlled to certain extent by the department itself. Okay. However, today the scenario is absolutely different, because with work from home, your KRAs, KPIs, in many cases, have been set on the phone or have been set on the Zoom call. The ability for you to strike, a lunch or a post-lunch session over a cup of coffee to discuss what's gone wrong or what's gone right for an avenue piece is not always there. You are presented with a case of appraisal having already taken place, and the ratings being given in most times where you haven't been able to be on the seat to actually control that situation. So I would like to believe that performance appraisal, unlike yesterday, when it was a functionality of 2 people or 3 people at the most, sticking together, evaluating what's really a part of a future process to what it should be, going ahead. I would not like it to be woven around only the physicality factor, because that's what has gone away today. So from now onwards, all discussions, all iterations, all course corrections, all feedback mechanisms will happen keeping the logistics or the proximity factor in mind, which necessitates that your communication channels should be topmost. They should be absolutely wide open and transparent. That there is a healthy camaraderie which exists between the 2 or 3 people involved in the process. And if you're able to take care of most of this, then I think you will have a proper work from home model in place when it comes to handling performance management.
Yes, absolutely. If you don't mind me saying, but I would like to add the thing you said about feedbacks, that before it used to be like this, the people used to face each other physically, and they used to discuss about their performance and things, and then they used to get the feedback at the end of the year, right? So don't you think that it's more feasible if the employees get instant feedbacks, get continuous feedbacks, and be in a continuous performance management process, rather than just managers dumping them with feedbacks and the areas that they need to work on at the end of the year?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good enough inference to be drawn on the basis of what we just now discussed. Yes, that's probably the obvious way to look at it. And beyond what you said, I don't really have too much to add to it either. All I will say is the model which is best suited, okay, in dealing with this kind of logistical difference, or a shift in the logistical paradigm, whereby the physical presence or the physicality of the entire process is discounted, and therefore you need to have other competencies or attributes to deal with this process, will have to be very well thought of, okay, and thought through, for that matter. Because it's just a caution point I want to really shout out to. Even when there was physicality involved, there was a lot of hue and cry in organizations that very rarely did the managers actually sit down and complete the process by going through methodical feedback sessions. Very often it used to be that on the last day of submission, forget self-actualization or self-appraisal. I'm not even talking about self-appraisal because that's a different issue altogether. Here we're talking about peer and review and reviewer basically. Here, even in earlier situations where probably a manager sat on a floor, just one floor away from the appraisee, he just feigned busyness and he was so all over the place that most often you heard that managers did not have the time to go in for structured performance review practices, and therefore whatever little they could gather out of the form, and if at all in the 90th moment something came to them, they would probably ask a cursory question and go by. Okay, now that did not help anybody.
Yes.
That really didn't help anybody. Now, in case that gets replaced by what today are independent bottles. Okay. Now you go back to, and you take another simple example, and you go back to the time when possibly there were people earlier who were cooking food for you in the kitchen. Okay. Suddenly you went into a situation of a rented apartment because you grew up and you had to start work in another city, and lo behold, you had a kitchen to yourself and you were whipping up the Maggies and the omelets and what have you. Now, for someone who never did it earlier and was never asked or coaxed into doing it, today you need not be coaxed and harmed, primarily because you should understand. Okay, you have to understand that it is the process part of it which is more important. Cooking food so that nutrition can be taken in for you is more important than anything else. Okay. Similarly, the feedback mechanism needs to be re-looked at, whether it can be fleshed out in a manner whereby the periodicity can be changed, whether it can very well be based on certain transparent principles where nothing is left unsaid between the two parties on the call. Okay, and it can be any kind of a call for that matter. I'm not prescribing it. A lot of these mitigations will automatically take place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So moving on to the next question. What are some proactive measures that can be taken by organizations to maintain employee performance?
Well, simple, very simple. Keep your workforce happy. Keep your workforce motivated. Keep your workforce connected. You see, one of the problems with work from home is you have a dispersed and a virtually distributed workforce today. Okay,
yes.
It's not just work from home; it's work from remote. It could be anywhere. Let's not think about it that way. And I speak from experience when I say this, because I've come across so many people today who are operating from back of beyond, because for them, work from home was not about staying in this city anymore. For instance, if it was a question of locational constraint, let's say I am a young executive who's come and joined GroSum, okay? And GroSum is based in Kolkata. And I belong to, let's say, Jaipur. Because of the fact that the earlier norms of working meant that you had to be locationally present in physical form at the head office, I would have had to go to Jaipur, take up some kind of an accommodation and be there. But today, that's no longer the case. I can actually manage to work out of any place, provided I have the basics in place. Now, what's that basic? That basic should be that there should be transparent ways of communication. There should be regular meetings, irrespective whether it's a Zoom meeting or whether it's just a phone call meeting. There should regular MIS documents be generated and sent across. And when I talk about MIS, it's not decisions about MIS. It's personal development MIS, which is at the end of the day, what have I done? How has it helped me? What is it going to do to me? You're expected to do that on every quarter and submit. Okay. So the point that I'm trying to make is that even if you are in work from home situation today, you could still very well make a success out of the performance management, provided you have these very simple common sense, points about reaching out to the person, establishing contact, making sure that the welfare factors are taken care of, making sure that psychologically the person is not under any kind of pressure, making sure that you've extended whatever infrastructure support that you needed to in order to make his help or his position at home comfortable enough to be able to scale up to that level of work. Because you can't just assume that any individual would walk into a single home in a single city out of nowhere and have a robust broadband connection. Why would he need it? He would have survived on this 4MG for a long time.
Yeah.
But you need it not because of any other thing, but because that is what it does become the expressed norm of behavior because of the change that is undergone.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think basically communication is the key of all the things.
Absolutely. Communication, my dear Pramita, was the backbone of an organization even in the previous days. Okay. Whenever we talked about any restructuring, whenever we talked about any new strategic initiatives being rolled out, whenever we talked about a shift in the vision mission of the company, and a reorientation of what should be its major focus, all of that are cardinal principles. I don't even want to say that those are trainings or those are upskillings that people would have to manage to go through. I would say they are cardinal underpinnings of a successful system. Okay. And if an organization doesn't have a robust backbone, which is really the communication system running from end to end, then there could be so many problems that I will probably not be able to have the resources or the fingers to count them on. Okay. Even today with work from home, it's in renewed vigor. Okay. It's in great shape, primarily because of some of the examples that I told you.
Yeah.
Right. It is in the benefit of the organization, it is in the benefit of the employee, and it is in the benefit of the managerial staff to ensure that communication works so that the whole underpinnings of every process that HR or anybody drives in will have its proper home, will have its proper celebrations at the place where they are, because that is where now everything matters. So a robust communication, end of the day, is everything, period.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. What in your opinion is the ideal process that a company must follow to ensure effective performance evaluation during the scenario? And any best practices that you would like to share?
I'm wondering which part of the question should I take first?
Shall I repeat it?
Sure, repeat it. The second one is, of course, the best practices one. What was the first one that you talked about?
What, in your opinion, is the ideal process that a company must follow to ensure effective performance evaluation during this scenario?
Well, as I said, it'll pretty much sound like a repetition of some of the things I said already. One is to make sure that there is a very robust communication channel, okay, between every appraiser and appraisee, which means the manager and every member of his team, okay. Second, I think what is very, very critical for the manager to do here, because see, there is no physical presence.
Yeah.
As long as you and me are part of the same boss's team, but we are there in his vision, in front of him, frolicking around, demonstrating work in physical space, he will have a lot more chances to recall, okay, and to actually imbibe, okay, nuances of what all we do in the course of the day, because he gets to see us physically at work. Now, supposing we vanished, and we both were working in a work from home situation or work from remote situation, not even home, somewhere far away from there. And he had no clue as to actually in physicality, what is it that we're doing, despite the phone calls. Yeah. Then it is completely dysfunctional to stay, to keep laboring on thinking, what should I do best and what should I do better in order to make performance appraisal work best? Simple things, which is communicate on time. Okay. Put absolute milestones in place, milestones in terms of how would you take the process forward. So when does the self-assessment finish? Have a conversation right after that. Okay. Probe with the assessee, what was the experience like? Because at the end of the day, he's done it in isolation. He's sitting somewhere in the back end. He doesn't have that social factor of being in an office.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe de-stressing over a cup of coffee with a friend. Okay, halfway done. So all kinds of things happen when you're in office, but that does not happen when you're sitting in isolation. And that's what you've got to be careful about. Now, because you don't want that isolation to create a vacuum in the mind of the manager, and you don't want it to result in a manager forgetting the very good performances that took place during this time when he was away from the workplace, it's important for the manager to keep what is known as a performance diary. Now, this is something which is generally prescribed, even in normal times. Even earlier, we used to talk to our managers and say, why don't you mention or why don't you maintain a performance diary for each of your appraisees? How does it help? And why did we say it in the earlier situation? The earlier situation, it was better because with the help of the diary, both the appraisee and the appraiser could actually pin down their comments and they could be real time, real life.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate, I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. That level of camaraderie and maturity, which was there earlier, that irrespective of my role or my seniority in the system, I just need to pull strength where it's required. That was not missing. That was really, really not happening. But if that can be brought into play, then that is one of the key things, which is measurement through a performance diary over a period of time in a very, very methodical manner with milestones indicated, okay, using a very seamless collaborative communication process that a system or a process of performance management can be put to very good use. So that should be the recipe for work from home.
Do you think formalizing feedback or regular performance check-ins will make a difference?
Well, yes and no, because regular monitoring along milestones, yes, it'll make a difference. Because milestones are important. It's critical for the company. That's why they are called milestones. Okay. But I don't know, if it is just a question of a transaction, possibly not too much of regulation, not too much of follow-ups can probably still work. But when it comes to critical work, or when it comes to work given against deadlines,
yeah,
okay, or work which entails the working of prior leaders, okay, who come in and who assist, okay, the different practices today, I think in critical situations, yes, certain amount of rigorous follow-ups. Employees will probably turn around and say, it's like almost breathing down my neck. But then there's also a fair chance that because of the fact that today they are psychologically so different in such a different place, that even they won't miss the fact that the manager is not there sitting next to them all the time.
Yeah.
So do monitoring, do communication, but do it along regular basis along all the important points. And moreover, another lesson I think to be drawn from what you showed us is the apparatus, the apparatus with which people work. So in this case, I talked about the performance diary. Okay. That would make a lot of difference. If the manager was meticulous in putting down notes about last conversation he had with the assessee, what was it about, and the rest of the people concur. And, they say that, yes, this is a good showcase and this person's performance seems to be doing well, even in these changed circumstances, I will be happy to go through it.
Right, absolutely. So the next question is, I think you have already answered it, but if you want to add something, I'll just ask it out. With employees and managers all away from each other, what steps can be taken to ensure clarity on work objectives or goals and their priorities?
I think I pretty much answered the first part of it, and not just once, repeatedly over 3 questions.
Yes.
Robust communication, good recording of events through the performance diary, ability to cope with a new system altogether. So agility and adaptive skills need to be really imbibed and improved upon. So these are some of the do's and don'ts that is absolutely must in order to create a robust superstructure of police which will deliver along all the lines. That's what I feel, and I think I'm not too wrong when I say that, because it's all born out of real experience.
So this is the last question that I'm going to ask you. How often should check-ins take place in an organization so that it is effective at the same time not being bothersome for both the managers and the employees?
Repeat that for me.
How often should check-ins take place in an organization so that it is effective at the same time not become bothersome for both the managers and the employees?
So this is typically what you're asking is about the periodicity, right?
Yes.
Honestly, Pramita, we didn't need to have a pandemic to have different models of periodicity when it came to the performance management. Because if you look at the traditional old age manufacturing organizations, even today they continue to slug around a 1-year program, which means that there is an annual principle.
Yes.
The second most important part that I'd like to bring here is, with the IT and ITES having gone very big since the last 10 years in this country, and with the working in such organizations, which is IT and ITES, very project-based and also focused on client delivery and focused on, earnings per chair, kind of a commercial, kind of commercials. I think the commoditization of people and their work had already happened. Okay, and soon enough came organizations thinking, especially again in the IT and ITS, that if delivery was along projects, if delivery was not even long-standing, then what are we doing talking about delivery, here? Because the kinds of delivery would have to be different. Okay, periodicity will have to be different, because how frequently do you touch the employee?
Right.
So if you touch him every quarter, his next quarter would be no. I think it's fine the way it is. Let it come at its own course. There could be another set of people who would say that no, the earlier the better. Let's have it quarterly. Let's have it half yearly. Some would even scream and say, no, let's continue with what we've had, which is 100%. So we've had these different models of periodicity in place since over the last 10 to 12 years, primarily because Prameerji's brother was there, and the rest of the government, they didn't warm up to this idea of making things more robust in terms of understanding what people creativity is all about.
Right. So much.
Thank you. It was lovely speaking to you. Thank you, GroSum, once more.
Thank you.